In 1874, a soda fountain clerk in Philadelphia ran out of cream, dropped a scoop of vanilla ice cream into a glass of flavored soda water instead, and accidentally invented a treat that swept the entire country in under a decade. Today, most Americans have never tasted half the things their great-grandparents ordered at the corner drugstore counter. Number 14 on this list was so strange that a New York newspaper called it a crime against dessert. Yet people lined up around the block for it. Number 3 contains an ingredient that fancy chefs are only now rediscovering. These 25 treats were so beloved that when the big chains arrived, they had to erase them to sell you something simpler. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 long-lost ice cream parlor treats America could not stop ordering. Number 25. Charlotte Russe. Before cupcakes had frosting an inch thick, New York City kids handed over a nickel for a Charlotte Russe. It came in a little frilled cardboard cup with a cardboard disc on the bottom you pushed up like a piston as you ate. Inside was a round of sponge cake soaked just enough to go tender, topped with a tall swirl of real whipped cream and a single candied cherry balanced on top. Pushcart vendors sold them on cold winter afternoons in Brooklyn and the Lower East Side, keeping the cream firm in the January air. A Charlotte Russe cost 3 cents in 1915 and 5 cents by the 1930s. You ate it walking, thumbing the cardboard up so the cream met your mouth before it collapsed. It was cheap, it was cold, and it was a small ceremony a child could afford alone. When refrigerated bakery cases arrived, the little cardboard cup vanished, and a whole generation of city kids lost their first taste of independence. Number 24. The Lime Ricky. Long before soda came in a can, the Lime Ricky was mixed in front of you by hand. The soda jerk squeezed half a fresh lime into the glass, dropped the spent rind in with it, poured in a shot of lime syrup, then blasted the whole thing with cold seltzer straight from the fountain arm. No ice cream. Just tart, green, fizzing, and sharp enough to make your jaw tighten on the first sip. A Ricky cost a nickel in 1920 and cooled you down faster than anything else on the menu. The trick was the fresh lime rind sitting right in the glass, giving off oil that no bottled drink could copy. Working men stopped in for one on the walk home from the factory. Kids ordered them with extra syrup. Every drugstore fountain in America knew how to build one without being asked twice. Today you can order a lime soda anywhere, but nobody squeezes the fruit in front of you. And that small piece of theater is exactly what we lost. Number 23. The Sarsaparilla Float. Before root beer took over the shelves, sarsaparilla was the drink at the counter, and pouring it over ice cream turned it into a float that tasted like nothing you can buy today. The syrup was made from sassafras and a tangle of roots and barks, giving it a deep, medicinal, almost bitter edge that root beer smoothed away. The soda jerk pulled the sarsaparilla from the fountain, let it foam, then lowered in a scoop of vanilla that fizzed and climbed toward the rim. A float ran about a dime in the 1930s. The vanilla cut the bitterness, the roots gave it a grown-up depth, and the foam laced the glass all the way down. Old-timers swore it settled the stomach and cleared the head. Drugstores marketed it as half medicine, half treat, and nobody argued. When bottlers standardized flavors for the mass market, real sarsaparilla was too strong and too strange to survive. The float went with it, and most people alive today have never tasted the thing their great-grandparents drank every week. Number 22. Green River. For a treat that once outsold nearly everything at the fountain in the Midwest, Green River has been almost completely forgotten. It was a bright, electric, emerald soda, lime and lemon layered into something sweeter and rounder than a Ricky. And when the jerk floated a scoop of vanilla or lemon ice on top, it turned the glass a glowing chartreuse that kids could not resist. Bottled in Chicago. Starting in 1919, it became the #2 fountain drink in the country behind cola through the 1920s. A Green River phosphate or float cost a nickel, and in Chicago neighborhoods it was practically a rite of passage. The color alone sold it. Parents rolled their eyes at the stained tongues and lips, but the tart lime flavor underneath was genuinely good, brighter than any orange or grape soda. It hung on longest in the movie theaters and corner shops of Illinois. Everywhere else, it faded as national brands crowded the fountain out, and today it survives mostly as a St. Patrick's Day novelty instead of the everyday favorite it once was. Number 21. The Boston Cooler. Despite the name, the Boston Cooler was pure Detroit, and it was Vernor's ginger ale, not root beer, that made it sing. The soda jerk took the deep, aged, almost spicy Vernor's, blended it hard with vanilla ice cream until the two became one thick, foamy, tan-colored drink, then poured it into a tall glass to be eaten with a spoon and a straw both. Vernor had a peppery bite that fought back against the sweetness of the cream, and the two together tasted like nothing a plain root beer float could reach. A Boston Cooler cost 15 cents in the 1940s at drugstore counters across Michigan. The ginger warmed the throat even as the ice cream cooled it. A strange, wonderful contradiction in a single glass. Detroit families ordered them by the pitcher on summer nights. It stayed regional, tied to a ginger ale most of the country never tasted. So when the chains standardized the float into root beer and vanilla, the Boston Cooler quietly slipped off the map outside of Michigan. Number 20. The Purple Cow. A purple cow was the drink that made children believe the soda jerk was a magician. It started with grape, sometimes syrup and seltzer, sometimes grape soda straight, and then in went a scoop of vanilla ice cream that swirled the whole glass into a marbled purple and cream color that looked like a sunset in a cup. The grape stained the vanilla in ribbons, and the foam on top turned lavender. A purple cow cost a nickel or a dime through the 1930s and 1940s, and it was the order every kid pointed to on the menu board before they could even read the words. The flavor was simple, sweet grape softened by cold cream, but the look was the whole point. Birthday parties in church basements ran on them. Fountains put them front and center to pull families in off the sidewalk. As bottled grape soda took over and the hand-built fountain drink disappeared, the Purple Cow became a name grandparents mention that grandchildren have never once seen mixed in front of them. Number 19. The Cherry Phosphate. Here is a drink that ran the American fountain for 50 years and then vanished so completely most people do not know the word. A phosphate was made with a few drops of acid phosphate, a tart, mineral liquid the druggist kept in a bottle, mixed with flavored syrup and cold seltzer. The cherry version was the king of them all. Deep red, sharp, and fizzing, with a clean sourness that made your mouth water for the next sip. It cost 3 cents in 1910, a nickel by the 1930s. The acid phosphate did something sugar alone never could, cutting the sweetness and leaving the drink crisp and almost savory on the tongue. Every drugstore mixed them because the druggist already had the acid phosphate on the shelf for medicine. Cherry, lemon, and chocolate phosphates were the everyday order for millions. When pre-bottled soda made the fountain obsolete, acid phosphate disappeared from the shelves, and the phosphate died with it. Bartenders and a handful of old fountains are only now bringing it back, and people taste it and cannot believe it was ever forgotten. Number 18. The CMP Sundae. Ask for a CMP at a fountain in 1940, and the jerk knew exactly what you meant. Chocolate, marshmallow, peanut, 3 scoops or 1, buried under thick chocolate syrup, a heavy pour of warm marshmallow that stretched off the spoon in strings, and a fistful of salted Spanish peanuts scattered over the whole thing. The genius was in the contrast. The marshmallow went soft and gooey against the cold ice cream. The chocolate went bittersweet, and the peanuts cut through all of it with salt and crunch. A CMP cost 15 cents in the 1930s, 20 by the 1950s. It was the sundae teenagers ordered to split 2 straws and 2 spoons after a movie. Every soda fountain in the country had its own slight version, but the 3 initials meant the same holy trinity everywhere. It was salty and sweet decades before anyone marketed that combination as something new. When the fountains closed, the shorthand died, and a treat that once needed only 3 letters to order now needs a whole paragraph to explain. First pattern break. Here is where the story gets interesting. The person who made all of these was not a chef. He was called the soda jerk, named for the jerk of the handle that pulled the carbonated water. And he was the most envied job in town. A good soda jerk mixed drinks with both hands, spun glasses down the marble counter, and knew 100 orders by their nicknames alone. The fountain itself sat inside the drugstore, which meant these treats were sold beside cough syrup and bandages because the druggist figured out that a cold sweet drink brought people through the door far more reliably than aspirin. Teenagers made the fountain their whole social world. It was where you met, where you flirted, where you spent your first earned nickel. The soda jerk was part bartender, part performer, part local celebrity. When self-service and packaged goods replaced him, we did not just lose the drinks. We lost the person who made them and the counter where a whole town used to gather. Number 17. The Tin Roof Sundae. The Tin Roof Sundae has one of the strangest names on any menu, and almost nobody knows what it means anymore. It was vanilla ice cream, chocolate syrup, and a scattering of Spanish peanuts, the red skin kind, all topped with a mound of marshmallow or chocolate. The story goes that it was born at a drugstore fountain in Potter, Nebraska, whose porch had a corrugated tin roof, and the sundae took the name of the building. A tin roof cost a dime in the 1920s. What made it different from every other chocolate sundae was those salted red skin peanuts, which gave a savory, dusty crunch that no ordinary nut delivered. Farmers came in off the plains dusty and tired and ordered one at the counter before the drive home. It spread across the Midwest under that odd name, understood without explanation for 2 generations. Today, the name survives on a few ice cream tubs, but the actual fountain version, built by hand with real Spanish peanuts and warm syrup, has almost entirely disappeared from the counters that invented it. Number 16. The frappe. Order a frappe in New England, and you did not get whipped coffee, you got the thickest milkshake in America. Down south and out west, a milkshake was thin, just milk and syrup shaken cold. But in Massachusetts, a frappe added ice cream, real scoops of it, blended into something so thick the straw stood up on its own. The word rhymed with rap, and asking for it wrong marked you as an outsider instantly. A coffee frap or a chocolate frap cost 20 cents at a Boston fountain in the 1950s. The ice cream made it rich enough to be a meal, cold enough to wake your teeth, and slow enough that you nursed it for 20 minutes. New Englanders defended the name like it was scripture, and to this day, an older Massachusetts native will correct you if you call it a shake. It was regional pride poured into a glass, but the fountain that made it fresh, scooping ice cream and blending it to order, is nearly gone, and most of the country never learned what the word even meant. Number 15. The Coffee Cabinet. Nowhere is the fountain treat more locked to one place than the coffee cabinet, a drink that exists almost entirely inside the borders of Rhode Island. A cabinet was a frappe by another name, thick with ice cream. But the Rhode Island version ran on coffee syrup, a dark, sweet, intensely coffee-flavored syrup that the state adopted as its own official drink flavor. The jerk blended coffee syrup, milk, and coffee ice cream into a frothy, tan, adults and kids alike obsession. Nobody outside Rhode Island could explain the name, and Rhode Islanders could not explain why anyone would call it anything else. A cabinet cost $0.25 in the 1950s. The coffee syrup gave it a deep, roasted bitterness under all that sweetness, more grown-up than a chocolate shake and utterly addictive. Diners and pharmacies across the state served them by the thousands. It never spread because the coffee syrup was a local product almost no one else stocked. And so a genuinely great fountain treat stayed trapped in the smallest state in the country, while the rest of America never got a single taste. Number 14. The Chop Suey Sundae. Here is the one an Eastern newspaper called a crime against dessert. The Chop Suey Sundae had nothing to do with Chinese food. It got its name because it was a chaotic pile of chopped everything: dates, figs, raisins, walnuts, and candied fruit, all cooked down into a sticky, dark, jammy topping and ladled hot over vanilla ice cream. Critics in the big cities mocked it as a garbage heap dressed up as a treat. But out in the small towns, people could not order it fast enough. A chop suey sundae cost 20 cents in the 1920s. The warm, boozy-tasting fruit against the cold, plain vanilla was rich and complicated in a way a simple chocolate sundae never reached, closer to a Christmas pudding than a scoop of ice cream. It filled you up like a real dessert. Fountains in the Northeast and Midwest kept a pot of the fruit mixture warm all day. The sophisticated crowd sneered, but working families understood exactly what it was. A whole holiday's worth of flavor for a fraction of the price, and they mourned it when it disappeared. Second pattern, break. Here is what the chains do not want you to think about. When the national ice cream chains rolled out in the 1950s and the 1960s, they did not just add stores, they flattened the menu. A hand-built fountain might offer 200 combinations, each mixed to order by a jerk who knew the regulars by name. A chain could not train 10,000 teenagers to build a coffee cabinet or squeeze a fresh lime Ricky, so they cut the menu down to a handful of things that could be dispensed the same way in every state. The phosphate was too complicated. The frappe took too long. The Charlotte Russe needed a real bakery. One by one, the treats that required a skilled human hand were replaced by whatever a machine could pump out fast. It was not that people stopped loving these drinks. It was that the businesses selling them decided a smaller, simpler menu made more money. We were sold convenience, and we quietly handed back 200 years of American invention to get it. Number 13, the Turtle Sundae. Before it was a candy in a box, the turtle was a sundae you ate with a spoon, and it was pure indulgence. Vanilla ice cream got a heavy pour of warm caramel and hot fudge, then a generous handful of pecans, arranged so the whole thing supposedly looked like a turtle's shell and legs. The pecans were the point, toasted and buttery, snapping against the soft caramel that pooled at the bottom of the dish. A turtle sundae cost $0.25 in the 1940s. The caramel and the fudge fought each other in the best way, one bright and burnt sugar sweet, the other deep and bitter, with the pecans holding the whole thing together. It was the sundae you ordered when you had something to celebrate, a paycheck, a first date, a good report card. Fountains made it look almost too pretty to eat. The candy company borrowed the name and the shape and sold it in a wrapper, and slowly the sundae faded, until most people think a turtle has always been a piece of chocolate instead of the towering dish it started as. Number 12, the Dusty Miller. The Dusty Miller is a name that used to mean something specific at any good fountain, and now means nothing at all. It was a sundae of vanilla ice cream drowned in butterscotch or marshmallow. then dusted heavily with malted milk powder. That fine, tan, slightly bitter powder that gave the whole thing a flavor halfway between candy and cereal. The powder on top was the trick, catching in the syrup and turning into something almost like a crumbled cookie. A Dusty Miller cost 15 cents in the 1930s. Malt was the flavor of the era, and dusting it over a sundae let you taste it in a whole new way, powdery and rich against the smooth, cold cream. Fountains across the country had it, though the exact toppings shifted from town to town. It was a favorite of the malt-crazy crowd who could not get enough of that flavor. When malted milk fell out of fashion, the Dusty Miller went with it, and the name survives now mostly as a plant and a moth, its delicious original meaning almost entirely forgotten. Number 11. The Knickerbocker Glory. The Knickerbocker Glory was the sundae you ordered to show off. A towering glass parfait so tall, the fountain kept special long spoons just to reach the bottom. Layers went up in careful order: ice cream, fruit, syrup, jelly, more ice cream, whipped cream, a cherry crowning the peak, all built inside a tall conical glass, so every layer showed through the side. It cost a quarter or more in the 1930s, expensive for a fountain treat, which was exactly the point. You did not order a Knickerbocker Glory because you were hungry. You ordered it because it was an event, a birthday, an anniversary, a splurge you could feel. Children stared at other tables where one arrived. The name carried a whiff of old New York glamour, and the fountains leaned into it hard. Digging down through the layers was half the fun, hitting the fruit, then the syrup, then the cold cream in turns. It survived longer in Britain than in America, but the American original, built by a jerk stacking layers into a special glass, has almost completely disappeared from the counters that first made it a spectacle. Here's a tighter version of that stretch, each entry cut roughly in half while keeping the voice. Number 10. The Peach Melba. The Peach Melba was the fountain's brush with fine dining, a dish a famous chef invented for an opera singer that trickled down to the corner drugstore. Vanilla ice cream, a soft poached peach half on top, and a bright red raspberry sauce running down into the cream. It cost 20 cents in the 1920s. Lighter and more elegant than the heavy fudge sundaes around it, it was what the ladies ordered after shopping, served in the good glass dishes. It felt fancy without costing much, a taste of the grand hotel brought down to what a shop girl could afford. When real fruit gave way to canned syrup, the Peach Melba slid off the menu for good. Number 9. The Biscuit Tortoni. Long before gelato shops, the biscuit tortoni was the Italian treat every fountain kept on hand. Rich cream whipped with sugar and egg, folded through with crushed almond macaroons and a splash of sherry, frozen firm in a little pleated paper cup and topped with more macaroon and a cherry. It cost a quarter in the 1940s, dense and cold and studded with cookie, closer to a semi-freddo than a scoop. It came over with Italian immigrants and became the standard end to a nice dinner. When freezer aisle novelties took over, it disappeared almost overnight, and a treat that once ended 1 million American dinners is now a name only the oldest diners recognize. Number 8. Spumoni. Spumoni was the showstopper. 3 layers of ice cream molded together, usually chocolate, pistachio, and cherry, with a ribbon of candied fruit and nuts between them, then sliced so every piece showed all 3 colors at once. A slice cost 25 cents in the 1950s. Italian neighborhoods in New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia made it the celebration dessert, brought out for holidays in a fat brick sliced at the table. As mass-produced tubs replaced the hand-layered original, the real candied fruit and careful molding vanished. And what most people call spumoni now is a pale shadow of the striped festive dessert that once anchored a whole community's table. Third pattern break. Here is something worth sitting with. Nearly every treat on this list came from an immigrant or a small-town druggist, not a corporation. The Italians brought the tortoni and the spumoni. New York's Jewish neighborhoods gave us the egg cream. A Nebraska pharmacist named a sundae after his porch roof. These were not focus-grouped products built to sell in 50 states. They were one person's invention at one counter, spreading by word of mouth because they were good. And that is exactly why they were so easy to erase. No company protected them, no trademark, no advertising budget. When the fountains closed, the recipes lived only in the hands that made them. And when those hands were gone, the treats were gone too. The chains did not have to fight these drinks, they just had to wait. Number 7. The EGG Cream. The most famous thing on this list has neither egg nor cream, and New Yorkers will argue about it forever. Milk, seltzer, and chocolate syrup, and that is all. But the order matters, and the technique matters more. Syrup first, then cold milk, then seltzer sprayed hard against an angled spoon to build a thick, white, foamy head. A good one cost a nickel on the Lower East Side in the 1930s. Made right, it is impossibly light. The foam clean. The chocolate cold underneath. The seltzer had to come from a real fountain under pressure, which is why a bottled version never tastes the same. As the corner candy stores vanished, so did the hands that knew the pour. Number 6. The malted. For 30 years, the single most ordered thing at the American fountain was the malt. A milkshake with a heaping spoonful of malted milk powder blended in, and that powder changed everything, adding a toasty, nutty depth that made a plain shake taste rich. A chocolate malt cost 15 cents in the 1940s. The powder had been invented as a health food for invalids, but the fountains found it made the best shake in the world, and America went wild. Teenagers ordered them by the millions. 2 straws and 1 glass. Malt shop became shorthand for the whole teenage scene. When the chains streamlined their shakes for speed, the malt step got cut, and a generation grew up never knowing the plain shake they drink is a hollowed-out version of what their grandparents loved. Number 5. The banana split. The banana split was the fountain's masterpiece, invented by a young pharmacist in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, in 1904 to draw the college crowd. A banana split lengthwise in a boat-shaped dish, 3 scoops in the trough, each with its own topping: chocolate syrup, crushed pineapple, and strawberry sauce, then buried under whipped cream, nuts, and 3 cherries. It cost a dime at the start, a quarter by the 1950s. Everything about it was excess, and it became the reward, the thing you ordered when nothing smaller would do. You can still find one, but the hand-built original, with 3 sauces made in the shop, has mostly given way to a pale version from a freezer. Number 4. The Hot Fudge Sundae. The hot fudge sundae lives or dies on real hot fudge, made in the shop and kept warm all day, thick enough to cling to the cold ice cream in a chewy shell. This is not chocolate syrup. Real fudge was cooked down with chocolate, butter, and cream until it was dense and glossy, and it seized up slightly the moment it hit the frozen vanilla. It cost 15 cents in the 1930s. The contrast was the whole point: scalding rich fudge against clean, cold cream. The best fountains guarded their recipe. When cheap squeeze bottle syrup replaced cooked fudge, the sundae kept its name but lost its soul. And today you mostly get thin syrup that runs off and pools at the bottom. Number 3. The ice cream soda. Here is the treat with the ingredient fancy chefs are only now rediscovering. The original was not ice cream dropped in pop. It was flavored syrup, a splash of cream, carbonated water shot in hard, then a scoop lowered in so the glass erupted into rising, fizzing foam. The secret weapon was acid phosphate, a few drops that made the whole drink crisp instead of flat and cloying. A proper one cost a dime in the 1920s. This was the drink that started the entire industry, invented at a Philadelphia fair, the thing that turned drugstores into social centers overnight. Craft bartenders are bringing acid phosphate back now, and people taste a real ice cream soda for the first time and understand why the country lost its mind over these. Number 2. The Black Cow. Before it became the most ordinary thing on any menu, the Black Cow got Americans hooked on floating ice cream and soda. It was born in Colorado in the 1890s when a soda maker dropped vanilla into a mug of root beer on a snowy night. The root beer foamed up around the melting cream, the top going drinkable while a solid scoop waited at the bottom. It cost a nickel early on, a dime by mid-century. Root beer and vanilla turned out to be one of the great pairings in American food. It is the one treat here that truly survived, though even it is usually built now from a can and a scoop instead of a hand-pulled fountain root beer. Number 1. The ice cream cone. At the top of the list is the simplest thing of all, the treat that outlived every other one. The cone was born, as legend has it, at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, when an ice cream vendor ran out of dishes and a nearby waffle seller rolled his warm waffles into cones. True or not, the cone swept the country almost overnight, because for the first time you could eat ice cream walking down the street with nothing to wash and nothing to return. A single scoop cost a nickel for decades. It was freedom in your hand. When the fountains closed and the phosphates and cabinets faded away, the cone alone survived. And every time you hold one, you are holding the very last of a world we let disappear. Here is my challenge. Order one of these this week, or make it yourself. The cherry phosphate, the AG cream, a real hot fudge sundae. Then tell me if the old ways were better, because I tried the phosphate with real acid phosphate, and I cannot go back to plain soda. Drop the one you are trying in the comments. I want to know if the egg cream gets more love than the malt, and whether anyone still remembers a soda jerk who knew their order by name. Because these were not just treats. They were a way of gathering that we traded away for something faster, and most of us never noticed it was gone.